Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button and keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. Alright folks, here we are after market close on Tuesday, August 1st. We're going to take a look at Palantir. Now, what you're looking at is a mix of the levels that we put on last week's video, which have been holding up really well, but also any of these dashed lines that you see here are new support and resistance that I put in a video that I was just recording, that I stopped recording, and I'm starting this one instead because I realized we have to scroll back so far to figure out previous price action between $20 and $21, which is all of this space here. And it was going to be a nauseating video and I didn't want to edit it together. So here's what we're going to do. Now that we've found this price action, we're going to find those levels, dash them, and then we're going to go back to today and sort of zoom into the 10-minute chart because basically in our last video, we put in levels on the daily chart. And those are great. And those are the solid lines that you see here, like this one and this one. And then I thought because historically speaking, Palantir has a lot of stickiness between $19 and $21, I thought it could be worth coming in and putting in more acute granular levels between just 19 and 21. But I needed to get back, especially to that $20 to $21 stretch. You don't have to go back too far. We can just take relatively recent price action to get between the 19 and 20, but I had to scroll back far, and so that's my long-winded story as to how we got where we are. But we're here now, so let's put in these levels, then we'll go back in and we'll sort of talk about the 10-minute chart levels that are now populating in this dashed version of support and resistance levels. So here's, where would this one be? Maybe about here, 2035. It's not a ton. So we're not going to have a lot to go off of, but we're going to work with what we have. So we have this, and I know that that's in, not during market hours, main market hours, but we have some stickiness there. But then here's really a good floor that was built, and it came up, and then here you see it flips from support to resistance. So that level may come into play this time around. We'll have to see. We're trying to build ourselves a little bit of a, things to pay attention to. Map is probably too crystal ballish of a word, but sometimes I like to think of it as a map. This is a pretty good level right here. You see this floor action here, and then the rejection action here, and then the big push off of it here when it dropped down. So 2093. And then let me see if anything else stands out. Trying to see if there's anything. Yeah, I would say right about here. 2052. Okay, so what do we have? Between 20 and 21, or I guess 21, 21. So I have 2009, 2035, 2052, 65, 93, and then 2121. Those seem to capture the bulk of what I'm seeing here. Okay, so let's go daily. Let's go to today. Now this looks like a mess, right? But we're zooming in. We're looking at what we have to work with. So the other levels I pulled in between the 19 and the 20 were just from the price action here and here. And so those all look hopefully relatively clean and obvious. 1989, if we fall below, 69, 60, 44, 32, 19. If we drop below that, we'll come back and put in some levels and go from there. But this is cluttered enough as it is. If we continue to push higher, and remember, sideways is also always an option. I feel like people forget that. 2009, 35, 52, 65, and then what did we say? 65 and then 93. And then I have that 21 level I have is actually 2121. So a bit, boosted from that psychological level of 21. I don't know that we'll fly through there if we get there, but to me that's sort of, there's not an obvious level between there, or like closer into 21. So that's how I see it. Now let's flip over and take a look at Think or Swim and see if that can tell us anything. Okay, I couldn't remember if I had pulled up Palantir here. So based on today's price action, good job staying in the channel here, mid to upper bounds of the channel, as you would expect on a day where it did push a little bit higher, but it's been on a really good tear lately. So you see this channel is quite broad at the moment. It narrows down, when the price action is a little more subdued. But from a 10-minute perspective, we're sitting mid-range on the channel. So that's obviously, as you would expect, mid-range is sort of a breaking point. Now, it didn't extend really out through the channel much, maybe a slight wick here and there today, but it was really just sort of playing mid-range to upper bound of the channel. So it would appear as though it still is sitting relatively bullish. I mean, by this setup and this indicator, it's showing still a bullish trend, but it is triggering here. So the firing is always the question, right? It triggers and then it fires. And the idea here is you're triggering, waiting for a big move, and then the firing is supposed to be the big move. So in this one, it might have been like this large down candle here, and then it sort of reset, triggered. It can also sort of lead you astray sometimes, of course, like any indicator can. This was a long trigger, and then when it fired, it didn't do a ton more than it had already done. So that can certainly happen as well. We could call that maybe a bit of a misfire sometimes. But RSI on the 10-minute here sitting at 53. Let's just take a look at the daily, since this chart is not a mess, because I just use it for this purpose, to look at this study and these channels. So, okay, so a little bit different story here. This is pushed up out of the upper bound of the channel, which resembles what you saw here. So as I would have said previously, this can spend quite a bit of time outside of the channel, but then at some point it's probably going to pull back in around to the mid-range. Could it fall below and even push the lower bound of the channel? Of course. But what I'm often looking for is the pullback when something is outside of the channel. Same thing if it's below the channel and it's losing price and the bears have a grip on it and it's outside the bottom bound of the channel, and I'm looking for it to pull back up to the mid-range. So it's always a bit of a timing question, of course, but it's 2 days now outside of the channel, so we'll see where that persists. You see it spent a couple of days here, basically outside of the channel, and then pulled back right into the midline, and then pushed off really strongly from there. Obviously, it did leave a gap here also, which is probably a little bit easier to see on this chart. And so the question will be, will it come down to try to fill that? And if it does, it will potentially just sort of like barely break this uptrend line. But it broke it here also, and then had a big surge up, so that may or may not mean much of anything. But I wanted to come in and put in some more granular levels and sort of plot a course for that potentially tight area between 19 and 21. I don't know if it will be, but historically speaking, that has been common with Palantir. That $20 level seems to have some strong psychological hold on the stock for the time being, or at least historically speaking. All right, folks, I hope you had a good trading day today and that the rest of your week goes well. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.